All right, so everyone, holding by Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers. Again, want to welcome everyone holding by Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. Again, chapter 2, Mishna 15, ethics for our fathers. This is part 2. And we're going to the Mishna. The following Mishnah says that they said 3 things. Rabbi Lezer says, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Do not anger easily. Right? So we spoke a little bit about that a few weeks back. Right? What honoring your fellow should be as much as you want to honor yourself. The reality is that we're not looking for honor per se. Not only that, we don't really, why would we want to honor someone as much as ourselves? Right? We are, I would say, we are people that, for better or for worse, crave honor. Right? We want, to be respected. We're not looking for honor. Honor is something that can drive us out of the world. Right? Honor, desire, and jealousy, which we'll speak about, one day when about 104. We'll get there. But honor, it's kind of hard over here. Why would I want someone to get honor, more than me? So, right, we sort of spoke about that a little bit. So further, let's say a person by nature, they're not stringent on their honor. That people should, honor them. Now again, someone's going to say, but we don't want honor. We're not interested in honor. True? Right? That is true. I would say in this cream puff generation, it's always good to feel good. Right? Meaning people feel good when they get a nice pat in the back, when they get a nice compliment. Right? It makes them want to, help others or do other good things. But the reality is, we're not looking for honor. Right? So it might be a little bit misleading over here. Let your fellow's honor be as dear to your own. Now, we're not necessarily talking about being held on a higher pedestal. Right? That's not what necessarily we're speaking about. Right? Honor means respect. We're not talking about, a person walks in a room, someone stands up for them. We're not talking about that type of honor. We're talking about respect. Do to someone else which you would want done to yourself. Right? Klal Gadol b'Torah. A general rule, big general rule in Torah. And that is, don't do anything to anyone that you wouldn't want done to yourself. So, what if a person, though, forgoes this? What if they're not stringent on their honor? Doesn't mean they should be disrespected. Doesn't mean they should be dishonored, per se. But what if they're not as stringent? Does that mean I shouldn't be as stringent as someone else's honor? Right? Maybe. If I'm not so stringent, maybe someone else won't be so stringent. I don't know. Could be. Yeah. Who says I would have to honor them in such a case? Right? If they forego it, right? I wouldn't have to. If they're not interested in having it, and they're willing to forego it, so why should I, the question would be, should others still honor them? We're not talking about the opposite of dishonoring. That's not what we're talking about. When the person forgoes it, you have an obligation to give it. Therefore, even the honor of their friend, they wouldn't have. Right? In other words, if they're willing to forego this, this is the problem. If they themselves would forego this honor, they themselves would do that, then why would they give it to someone else? Right? It says, your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. And if your honor is not worth that much, you don't really care one way or the other. So, by way of inference, I would say, you know what that means? It means I don't have to honor someone else. In other words, if I'm not looking for the honor, why should I honor someone else? Right? That's, their honor I wouldn't have. Right? So that's not true. That's definitely not true. How do I know? Right? How do I know it's not true over here? Because see by King David. King David himself says in Psalms chapter 15, verses 2 to 3. King David says, one who walks in perfect innocence, does what is right, speaks the truth from his heart, who has no slander on his tongue, who has done his fellow no evil, nor cast disgrace upon his close one. That's what I learned from King David over here. That when a person does the right thing, right, honor is going to come. Others will respect what they do. They speak the truth. They don't speak falsehoods. They don't slander. They're not a talebearer. They haven't done evil to their fellow. Right? They haven't caused disgrace. So somebody like that, as King David says, someone to be honored. They're going in the right path. They're doing what's right. Right? They speak the truth. They're not afraid of the truth. Right? Regardless what someone might say. But the thing is, a person can be despised in their own eyes. But a student, maybe we can say, when it comes to the Rebbe, they'll have fear, right? They'll have awe, so to speak. Does that mean perfect? Doesn't mean perfect. I mean, you can't make mistakes, right? King Solomon says no one's in the world that hasn't made a mistake. There are only a handful of people. The Gemara says that died because of the sin of Adam and Eve. They didn't sin, right? Essentially, right? So very interesting over here. Well, a person in their own eyes. How do we view ourselves? Right? How do we look at ourselves in the mirror? Now, a lot of times, I would say, put on my psychologist hat here, so you can take this with a grain of salt. And that is, the person looks at themselves. Then do we look at ourselves honestly? Or essentially, do we look at ourselves in a very harsh way? Right? We can look at ourselves in an extremely harsh way. Right? Questions come up all the time, I see. People generally, want to serve God the right way. And even though the Gemara says, how does a person sin, that a foolish thought enters their mind. Right? They understand the awesomeness of the king. Right? Now, a few and a half weeks till we get to the month of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. So now we start feeling this more, taking it, introspection, even though everyone's on vacation now. Certainly from learning, there's intercession now. So, but you still got to start, introspection at some point. So the problem is, or let's say better, we look at ourselves as an infinitesimally small speck of cosmic dust. Grow up in a small town or city, in a state, in a country, continent, right, on a planet, galaxy, right? We get smaller. So, nonetheless, our actions matter, right? The Rav Chaim Volozhin, Nefesh Chaim Volozhin, the famous student of the Vilna Gaon, more than 250 years ago, started the Volozhin Yeshiva, which is basically today, any yeshiva is basically based on that, yeshiva and how it started, what they learned and how they learned, right, in general. Anyway, in this epic work, Nefesh Chaim, the soul of life, literally. Most people only learn the fourth gate. There are 4 gates. Most people only learn the fourth gate because that's speaking about, observance of Torah, the importance of Torah. Other gates, a lot of it very much steeped in Kabbalah, which a lot of people don't necessarily learn. But in the first gate, this is one of the first things he says: don't think your actions don't matter. Right? To the extent where he talks about Adam and Eve, the tree of knowledge, and it caused death to the world. So we know our actions matter. I mean, that messed up tree of knowledge, according to Kabbalah, is all the spiritual worlds. Right? all the spiritual worlds attached one to the other to get to God's heavenly throne, the Kisei Kavod, whatever that means. And all these spiritual worlds in flux. Now that Adam and Eve ate from the tree. So we're busy trying to fix that. Every day we do Torah, we keep Torah and do mitzvahs. Trying to fix that, trying to get back to the world where it was before Adam and Eve sinned. There's only other one time in history that had happened. That was by the giving of Torah Mount Sinai. And then Mr. Hesed Satan, evil inclination, angel of death, whatever you want to kill it, whatever you want to call him, understood if that's the case, my day's going to be over. God's not going to need me anymore. Going to destroy me. So what did he do? Made a vision of Moses, the Medrash says, in a coffin, because the children of Israel made a mistake, thinking when he was coming back, they made a mistake, and guess what? After that, they sinned with a golden calf. So now, the world is where it is, much lower state, no question, but we're trying to get back to that point, or at least till the Messiah comes, either way. Right? So that's by Torah mitzvah. So a person who does something wrong, how do I get onto this? Because a person who does something wrong, when Nichnas bo ruach shtus, they got too much free time. So something stupid enters their mind. They understand, really, it's a rebellion against God. What can they do? They'll claim, what can I do? Gave into my evil inclination. Now, where's the problem? Where's the problem here? Problem is, doing this is obviously a problem. But where's the problem? The problem is, the person's going to say, but I really feel so bad. Right? They should feel bad. Right? It's like you're destroying worlds over here. You're destroying worlds by sinning. Right? No question, depending how bad you did it, whatever the sin was, where you're holding in the world, right? You're probably going to get judged very differently than other people. Right? Depends on a lot of different factors. But the point is, it's a rebellion. It's a rebellion against God, whether you know more, you know less, it doesn't matter. Right? Even a person's a potato farmer in Idaho, right? No offense, anyone's a potato farmer, grew up in Idaho. Regardless, they're going to get judged differently. Because they don't know what they're doing. All right, tell me, what if they intermarry? What if they desecrate shops? Okay, certain things they can't do, even if they don't know anything. They're not going to get a free pass over here. Or, God will look at things they did like by accident. Right? Depends what they've done. If they've done something so severe, you can't say that. Right? 100% you can't say that. But that's not the topic here. The point is, how do we view ourselves in our own eyes? Right? That was the question here. Right? That's what we saw in what King David said. So now we say a person can be despised in their own eyes. Now let's analyze that for a second. What does that mean, a person can be despised in their own eyes? What's simple explanation? Right? What's simple explanation? Simple explanation is that we look at what we did as being horrific, which is true. We should feel bad. I don't think there's any question. We should feel bad, what we've done. At the same time, we should not be paralyzed. Right? Now, this is a very hard thing. This is a very, very hard thing. And this comes up a lot. Why? On the one hand, we want to serve God. We want to serve God to the best of our ability, which is true. On the other hand, we have an evil inclination. The Gemara says God gave us an evil inclination, but he gave us an antidote. What's the antidote? Torah and mitzvahs. So if the antidote is Torah and mitzvahs, the Gemara says, but even with Torah and mitzvahs, it doesn't help unless God helps you. That's very comforting, isn't it? Evil inclination can destroy us, no question. Right? But we have an antidote. We have the Torah itself. We have learning Torah. We have mitzvahs. Right? We have mussar. We have ethics. So that's very good. That's very good, but I need heavenly help also. I need God to help me over here. This is a very good thing. God gave us an antidote. That's true. And we have to know how to tap into it. We have to know how to use it. We have to know how to not get sidetracked by the evil inclination. Now, what can the evil inclination, Mr. S, what can he do over here? Person did something wrong and they did it again. They did it a third time. They did it a fourth time, an eighth time, a 10th time, whatever. Yeah. They lose hope. They give up hope. Right? They say, not just the question God's going to zap me. We're not even talking about that. They feel bad. They understand this reward and punishment, right? It's one of the 13 principles of the Rambam. Everyone agrees to the reward and punishment. Just read that in the evening service, part of the Shema, right? Second paragraph, there's reward and punishment. You do the right thing, God gives you food. God gives you, all your needs. You do the wrong thing, there's payback. That's clear. Right? No one wants to hear that, but that's, many times the Torah says that over and over again. Okay. Now, what can happen? Comes on Mr. S and says, oh, look, you did this time. You did it a second time. You did it a third time. Why bother? Why bother getting out of bed? You're a loser. You're never going to get it right. You won't be able to pronounce the Hebrew words right. No one's ever going to respect you in a community. You'll never get out of Dodge. Yeah, these thoughts ever come up? Probably. Probably. Now, what's the evil inclination doing over here? The evil inclination is trying to convince you and give you yayush, meaning that you're going to give up hope. You're going to give up hope and trying. You're going to say, well, what's the point? I did this yesterday. I did it the day before. I'll probably do it tomorrow. I'll probably do it the next day, right? We get in bad habits, spoken about that a lot. But the point over here is how do we view ourselves, right? And that's the idea over here. Because the Mishna says, let your fellows' honor be as dear to your own. Now, you're willing to forego that. You're willing to overlook things. Okay, so that's what you're willing to do. Right? But who says you should do that for someone else? Now, so we're talking about what a person feels themselves. Right? Dig a little bit deeper. Everybody, and I mean everybody, needs a certain level of self-esteem. We're living in a generation today. I remember a great rabbi once told me this many years ago, many, many years ago. He said, this is one of the most serious problems, within yeshivas today, within, people learning, either girls learning or guys learning, whatever it is in the school system, right? What's one of the major issues? One of the major issues is feeling good about themselves, right? Why is that an issue? Why is that an issue? Because sometimes, I'm not going to go statistically here, but sometimes, person's school experience is not great. Most people, hopefully survive the system. Even in an Orthodox school, people need discipline, true. There's certain things you're obligated to do. Right? You can't just, break the rules and think nothing's going to happen. Right? There's certain hours you have to come. You have to get there on time. You have to, whatever it is, whatever the obligations are. So you would think, and I would think in general, the whole objective over here is to build them. You're building the next generation of Jewish people. So you want to build them. You want to give them the greatest experience you can give. But what's an obvious issue, right, in education? So you have a lot of kids in the class, right? You got a lot of classes. You need to discipline the class. You need to give over material. You got to make sure the kids understand the material. You can't just speak to one type of kid in the class. Can't be just to the best kids, right? Otherwise, you lose everybody else. So whatever, education's not perfect, by any stretch. A lot of people get destroyed by the system. Secular schools, religious schools. Religious schools should be better. I mean, they're teaching values. They're trying to teach values, proper values, of Torah mitzvahs and what the mitzvahs mean and what we're obligated to do, and all that. There's a curriculum, what they have to learn, what they have to be proficient in, when it comes to their bar bat mitzvah, they're gonna be obligated now, to keep mitzvahs, but you gotta teach them from a young age. You don't wait, you don't wait till they're like 6 or 7, or let's say better. You don't wait till like they're 10 or 11, try and teach them about Torah mitzvahs, and their whole lives are totally different, right? You gotta teach them from a young age. You gotta put them in schools. They're gonna give them the best chance, of surviving Jewishly. Let's say better, not even surviving Jewishly, passing that down, passing tradition down, and what you're obligated to do. So you're gonna say, well, shouldn't it be the most fun in this? It should be. Kids should enjoy it, but you know what? When they get older, it's harder. It's harder. There's a lot to know. So, they have to give over however it's being taught. But they have to be, productive, Jews in Jewish society. They have to learn how to pray. They have to understand what the prayers mean. They have to understand what the holidays are. They have to live it, right? And obviously living it comes from home. They could get mixed messages at home. They could have learning disabilities. There are a lot of things, and that's not really the topic here. There are a lot of things that can take a Jew away from Torah mitzvahs, right? A messed up family, that could do it, right? Fighting between the parents, that could do it. Learning disabilities, not being able to catch up, feeling like a failure, that could do it. And it could be they just, flake out at a certain point because, they just want to live a life of being Hesker. They just want to do what they want. They don't want to hear about rules and, and this and that. It's not about philosophical issues. That's not the issue. They don't, some people will have issues. And they'll say, oh, the school did this rabbi did that, did the other thing. It could be true, right? Someone, made a mint of money on Netflix going, doing this, bringing out all her dirty laundry, So she might have had a bad experience. Okay. Maybe she did. It doesn't mean the whole system's cracked. It doesn't mean that. It's one thing, try and get help for it, whatever. It's another thing, just to distort things and show what the Torah isn't. Now, this is the thing that sells. You see, you got hundreds of thousands of Jews keeping Torah mitzvahs that are happy. They like keeping Torah mitzvahs, regardless whether it's hard or this or that. They like it. They want to pass it down to the next generation. They got a few bad apples. They don't say not only are they not happy, they're going to bring out all this trash to the public. Right? I get this all the time. People say, "Oh, did you read this book? Do you see this?" I don't need to because I know what they're, I know what's behind what they're saying. I told someone whatever a while ago, a long time ago. Right? Someone asked me about a certain book. I didn't know what it was. I looked it up. So I said, I don't need to read it. I said, why don't I need to read it? Because I'm happy where I am. Right? I'm happy with, in this brand of Judaism, and it works. And it works in a major way. So, a few bad apples, and you're gonna say, oh, that this experience, that that bad experience, Okay. There are people who don't have the greatest experience, true. And there are things that can take away a person, from Torah mitzvahs. That can happen. That can happen. Is that what God wants? No. But again, are humans perfect? We're not perfect. Are teachers perfect? No. Right? No one's claiming to be perfect, by any stretch. And some people pick apart what someone says just to make them look bad. So you see, I don't have to listen to this person. No, I don't have to. Okay, right? Everyone can listen to whatever they want. As long as they're giving over the right message. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. People don't like my, what I say or too blunt or other things. Okay, no one has to listen. No one's forcing anyone over here. By any stretch. And people are human. People are human, but they can make serious mistakes. Especially in education, it makes serious mistakes. And destroy people. And I've seen it, and it's sad. And they're going to pay a serious price. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question. But again, keep in mind one thing. That I heard Rebbe Wine should be well. To be a rabbi in Miami, goes here in Israel now for many years. And he once said, imagine, 10-year-old, 11-year-old kids, and was in school. He had a bad teacher. Right? He had a bad teacher. And he said, okay, that's it. I'm done with school. I'm gonna go out and get a job. You think it's ever gonna happen? Not gonna happen. What are they gonna say? Probably, a person may need, professional help. Everyone will agree, let's say it's a person with a bad teacher, even if they don't get fired, doesn't matter. They had a bad experience. So, chalk it up to a bad experience, and you move on. I mean, obviously, person may need help to get over what happened, different things. Okay. Now, what happens is this person goes, what happens if this person goes off and they decide not to keep Torah mitzvahs anymore? Now, what's the catalyst? What's the catalyst of this person not keeping Torah mitzvahs? Catalyst of this person not keeping Torah mitzvahs could be based on this experience. Okay. Could be. Right? Could be. Over here. Now, even if that's true, after 120 years, and that person's still going to have to answer. Still going to have to answer. Now, God can say, I understand this person did this and did that. I'll take care of that. I will judge them, and take care of business. That's not your issue. Your issue is, okay, you had a bad experience. Let's say you're 100%, you're 100%, you're 100% right over here. You had a very negative experience. Okay. So this is the way they reacted. They reacted by saying, God, what you did to me over here. You spit in my face, so I'm going to spit in your face. You didn't help me over here. Because you didn't help me and I floundered and I felt really bad and whatever. So why do I have to pay the price? Why do I have to pay the price? Now, let's analyze. What does one thing have to do with another? Person had a bad experience. I get it. That they had a bad experience. God could show you a second movie and say, yeah, according to Kabbalah, you're going to see two movies after you die. The first one, as everyone who has not a body experience says, that they see the life flash before their eyes. Very good. Right? They see everything they've done, everything they thought. And then they say what they could have done, what they should have done. Right? That's going to be embarrassing enough. And that is going to be one part of what Gehenna is, right? Of what hell is, the fact that they're embarrassed. Right? How's a spiritual being? You're not human, right? How they get embarrassed? I don't know. But that's one aspect of what Gehenna is. They get embarrassed, right? They feel embarrassed because they know absolute truth. Now, God can say this was a trial. You had a bad experience. I'm going to show you what you could have done, how you could have overcome it, and what you could have become. But what happens? What happens? God says, this is what you did. And this is what the end result was. Right? And these are the ramifications of what happened after that. But that's not what I wanted. Right? It was a trial for whatever reason. But I wanted you to pass. If you would have passed the test, or, pass it in some way, it wouldn't have been as bad. Right? It definitely wouldn't have been as bad. You wouldn't have fallen as far, for sure. Right? But you didn't. Okay, so there are ramifications. Now, is it possible God puts a person in a situation they can't handle? No, we don't believe that. A person can be put in a difficult situation, seemingly impossible situation. Doesn't mean we can't handle it. We may think we can't handle it. Now, so what happens? Person said, well, God, you did this, I'm done. Right? Then what happens? I'm done. Now, are they responsible at this point? Are they responsible? Of course they're responsible. Is the other person who caused them damage responsible? They're also responsible. It's also true, but you can't pass the buck. That's very easy. That's very easy. Oh, you did this to me. You didn't give me my allowance this week. I didn't get ice cream this week. I'm done. Right? That's why we're bringing, person bringing up kids. Very hard today. Very, very hard. Especially with teenagers. Teenagers, a friend of mine would say they're different creations. Different creation altogether. Right? Especially girls and hormones and all that. So a kid can say, oh, this happened, that happened. Oh, you're doing this? Before they slam the door on the way out, they say, I'm going to go off. Okay, that's their choice. That's not a threat. It's not a threat to a parent per se. Why? Because they have to stand strong. They have to discipline. They have to discipline. You have to make the punishment fit the crime. But, they're saying that out of anger. Hopefully they'll come down and come back and whatever. Right? But they could say that. They say, because of you're doing this. Oh, so, I'm guilty, or a parent is guilty because they didn't give you exactly what you want. So now you're going to spit in God's face. My kesher. What's the connection? There's no connection. Because you didn't get what you want, or you feel like you're being deprived, or whatever the case is, then that calls into question whether God exists or not, and I have to keep his mitzvahs. It is a huge topic. Huge topic. Yeah, I always speak about easy things. Well, this is a huge thing. I speak about this for weeks. For weeks. Yeah. Why is that person at that point not responsible if they do? Let's say they did. Let's say they just spiraled out of control. And they decide, okay, I'm not keeping Torah mitzvahs anymore. Because you wouldn't give them ice cream. Or you discipline them and they weren't happy with the discipline. Is that the parent's fault? Seemingly, anything a kid does to a certain extent, parents liable to a certain extent. Even after the age of bar mitzvah, could be they're liable also to a certain extent. But that gets a little more complicated. You're going to say they have free will. You're right. You're right. Some say until they're not liable until the age of 20, you still have an obligation. And when they're married, try and educate them the right way. I mean, you have to know how to do it and whatever, but who says educating your kids, you're finished, even when they're grown up and they're married? Doesn't mean they always listen, okay. Parents still have to take responsibility. But you're going to say, kid has a free choice. You're right. Yeah, they have free choice. But when they make a choice, there are a lot of factors involved. Right? The Mishna in Sanhedrin says, the world is created for me, meaning for me, no one else. So each person's their own world. If each person's their own world, we're complex. You want to tell me some little thing a parent said or whatever caused the kid to go off? It's totally the parent's fault? Not totally the parent's fault. It's just that they're held to a higher standard, obviously, because they have to educate their kid. Yeah. But, a kid who decides, later or whatever, they're going to go off and do whatever. It's their choice. They make the choice. They absolutely make the choice, but they have to live with the choice. Living with the choice means there are ramifications. But, I'm not even going to talk about in this world. How do you deal with family and other things? That's a whole other issue, right? Someone who goes off and how the other siblings deal with them. Okay, that's another issue. We're not going to get into. My issue is that person goes off now, let's say, or whenever, right? Are they responsible for their actions? They're responsible. They're 100% responsible, right? So they say, well, God did this or God did that. They're still responsible. That doesn't take away the responsibility. Now, if someone caused it and gave them serious problems, yeah, okay, that helped it. They're going to be liable for their share. But at the end of the day, everyone makes a choice. They make a choice how to handle it. Some people, I've seen this many times, and any psychologist will tell you that it's not that big into psychology per se, but they'll tell you if there's things you don't get, if you don't work through when you're younger, it'll come to bite you later. In other words, it'll come out in other ways when you're older. And it might take, it might take years, it might take a long time, to get over certain things. But if you never get over it, you can't live. See, that's the difference. You can't live in the past, my Rebbe said. Right? If you live in the past, you have no future, but you have to get certain level of clarity. Right? Even if parents are bad, even if they're considered evil, let's say. Still an obligation. There's still an obligation, to respect them to a certain extent. You don't have to honor them. Right? By non-Jews, you don't have to honor them per se. Right? You have to, a certain level of respect because they brought you into the world. But again, cutting off ties is not a bad thing in many ways. Somebody say, I feel guilty. Why do I have to feel guilty? If it's a bad relationship, you get out. You're being contacted. It's however much you want. But if it's bad, you limit it. You limit it because your life comes first. That's not being selfish. That's what we hold. Your life comes first, period. So you have to take care of yourself first. So, even if there's a lot of pressure, and certainly by Jews, they love putting, guilt. Like one of the best things we have, guilt. Putting guilt on our kids, so to speak. So sometimes it's good to, put a little bit of fear in them or whatever, because they really want your appreciation. They want your respect and, and all that. At the same time, they don't want to lose that. Right. But sometimes the relationship's not healthy. That they're not healthy and that can cause a lot of damage. Tremendous amount of damage. Right. Again, I'll tell this case. I don't know that many details, but a person felt they were put in a situation they couldn't win and there was no possible way. right? They became religious. And the parents' family put a lot of pressure on them, a lot of pressure to be like them, be like everybody else. They didn't live in a Jewish community. It doesn't sound like they had rabbinic guidance. And they cracked. At a certain point, they cracked. Why? Because they wanted parental support. They wanted family support. And, it's important, but a lot of times it's never going to happen, right? You're never going to get it, right? So a person should realize, in a certain situation, you'll never get it. You never get appreciation. They don't ever pat you on the back. It's hard. It doesn't give someone that much great, what do you call it? It's not going to give them the ability to have, self-assurance themselves, because they'll question, well, I wish I could do more. I bend over backwards. And you know what? You bend over backwards, still get nothing. Right? So I tell people, okay, do what you can do, and that's it. What you can't do, you can't do. What you're never going to get in reciprocation, never expect. Now, again, that's very sad. But, not to digress. Now, let's say the parents put a lot of pressure. They put a lot of pressure, and what happens? Or a family puts a lot of pressure, and a person starts questioning. Is this really what the Torah wants? Does the Torah want me to go against them? Does the Torah really want me to stand up for it and make waves? There are plenty of people out there who do not want to ever make waves when it comes to family. They don't want to make waves. You know what? Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have no choice. But that kind of pressure could kill people. It could definitely, not literally, but it could put so much pressure on them. They crack. They start to question, God, why'd you put me in this situation? I'm trying to keep Torah and mitzvahs. I'm getting slammed left and right. That's why I've heard about myself, other people, they say, we're like Avram Avinu, right? Avram Avinu was called Avraham HaIvri. That doesn't mean it was Abraham the Jew, even if he kept the Torah before it was given, whatever that means. Avram HaIvri literally means he was on the other side. Ivri, Aver means on the other side, like Aver HaYarden, means on the other side of the Jordan. It means he fought against the entire world, right? Everyone was, worshiping idols. They said, here's Bob, right? Here's my pocket God. Here's Bob. Don't leave home without him. And Abraham said, there's a God. He runs the world. He came to this conclusion at the age of 3, at the age of 40, right? Etc. He fought against the entire world. God never even spoke to him, and he got thrown in a fiery furnace. Nimrod threw him into a fiery furnace with even God coming to him and telling him he was right. But he believed it. And we have that ability thousands of years later to be able to fight against everything around us. Why? Because that's what Abraham did. That's what he put in the world. That's exactly what he put in the world. He fought against the world. I heard many times, you're like Avram Avinu. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's 1,000 years later. He's 10 times stronger I'll ever be. In other ways. In other words, no, you're fighting the tide. You're standing strong. That's what Avram did. No difference what he did or what you're doing. Same thing. He just gave you the ability to do it. Put it in the world. Is it an easy thing? No. Anyone ever want to be called names? No. Made fun of? No. Cursed out? No. Right? It can be a lonely process. It can be an extremely lonely process. And I think most people understand that. But at the same time, so what if a person cracked, right? That's the question here. The person cracked under pressure. Yeah, and they go back to being like everybody else because they couldn't take the pressure. Are they liable? Is God going to say, you had no opportunity, I was there with you, but you didn't grab me strong enough, and you failed the test, right? Essentially, no offense, you failed the test. I don't think anyone wants to hear that. Per se. But you can say, wow, you get stamped on, you got made fun of, you get this, and a person can say, God, why are you doing this? Right? You took away my livelihood, you took away this, you made me sick, now I got illness, and I got livelihood, and I got all these other problems. Wow, what a covenant, right? Go back to Abraham, look at the covenant God gave him. Famine, right? His wife gets taken, they have to fight the 5 world powers, save Lot, one remaining family member, all kinds of things he goes through. God saves the best for last, circumcision, right? Goes through circumcision, at the age of 100. What he went through. So God's like, hey, what do you think of my covenant? Great covenant. Where do I sign? Come on, where are the Jews signing up? All the non-Jews signing up. What a covenant. We've been burned and gases came from, destruction of the temple, feeling like a piece of dirt, fasting in, 95-degree heat or 35 degrees Celsius heat. It's hot. Not to mention if you weren't feeling well before and all that. You're reading all these keynotes, these liturgical poems, very hard to understand, feeling like an absolute piece of dirt. Why? Because we don't have a temple left in Jerusalem. You go through those Gemaras, which I did a little bit on Tisha B'Av. Unbelievable. Tens of thousands of Jews died, butchered, murdered. Cities destroyed, people dying in famine. No food. Some of the keynotes there, these liturgical poems talk about women eating their children. Women eating their children. There was starvation, severe starvation. That doesn't move someone or shake someone. Well, yeah, they were all spiritually dead. It's, and all the 10 martyrs that were killed in a horrific way and, and all that. Right? So anyone who wants to join, anyone want to sign up? It's only going to get worse, even before it gets better. Right? Before the Messiah comes. But again, that's not the topic here. Person can get under a lot of pressure and fail. Because they feel they're in a situation they can't handle. They feel it. A friend of mine that I haven't seen in years mentioned the story before. Went to his sister's wedding. That was intermarried. He said, I was there under protest. Yeah. Having this kosher food, doing the horror under protest. Yeah, okay. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean under protest? You don't want to make waves. I get it. Then we probably put a lot of pressure. I'm sure. Felt there was a test. He couldn't stand up to, so he went. Big problem. You're an Orthodox Jew. How do you go to an intermarriage? According to anybody, any rabbinic authority, Orthodox rabbinical authority, there's a red line. There's a red line. Tell me the person is interested in converting. And this, okay, maybe. But in general, how could you go to an intermarriage? Can't. Goes against everything the Torah says. Everything the Torah says. All right, what about all the pressure? And everyone's going to call you out, and everyone's going to say, oh, he's a fanatic, and he wouldn't come. And, okay, and so what? Sticks and stones. Right? Most people say, I could care less what other people say. It's not true. I don't think it's true. People care. People want to be respected. People don't want to be looked at as a fanatic. People don't want to be looked at as, somebody that's like subhuman. Because they think all kinds of crazy things and hold by these antiquated laws. Nobody wants that. Nobody's interested in that. No one's signing up for that. But guess what? It could happen. It can definitely happen. And people can be rude. People can be really rude. And they can put a lot of pressure. And they can say, well, you're breaking up the family, whether you're doing this, you're doing that. And it's so sad. Religion breaks up people. You ever hear that? Breaks up families. They don't ever tell you that. It's not supposed to. You're right. It's not supposed to. But if you don't keep it right, it can happen. It can happen. Right? I would say, by a Jew, because, I know mostly Jews, if a Jew decided to become a Sikh, let's say, became a Hindu or something like that, there's more respect to a certain extent than if they became an Orthodox Jew. Let that sink in. That's pretty pathetic. You want to hold by what our forefathers went through and keep their laws and, and all that. That you don't show respect for. Oh, became a Sikh or whatever. Okay. To each their own. But they'll respect that a heck of a lot more than became an Orthodox Jew. I'm not saying across the board, whatever. I'm not saying people won't necessarily make comments, but in general, that's what I've seen. It's kind of crazy. If you think about it, but a person wants to fit in, right? That's the whole point. I see a bunch of questions there. I'll take them in a second, right? But that's the whole point. A person wants to fit in. And when you don't fit in, what happens? I'm talking about it, in Jews and Judaism and all that, right? What happens when you don't fit in? You make them feel like a pariah. That's what you make them feel like. So now you ask the question. You're linking, you're connecting to a chain. that's more than 3,000 years old, right? You're reconnecting to this chain and you're getting hammered. So couldn't you ask the question, God, okay, I'm reconnecting. What do you want from me? And what would God answer if I would play God, put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache? What would I say? God's saying, I want you to be strong. I want you to stand up for me. I want you to say sticks and stones. Doesn't matter what they say. It's irrelevant what they say. You have to have 100% in faith in me and how I run the world and what I do. And that's part of the mantra. That's part of the mantra we should say every day. God, you're the one in charge. No matter what, I'm going to hold on to you for dear life. You're the one in charge. I'm not worrying about man. I'm not putting my stake in man, not in politicians, not in anything. I'm putting my stake in you. I'm going to do whatever I can to be the best Jew I can be. So back to the original question. Right, see, I got a little bit off topic here. As usual, person can be despised in their own eyes. But I want to do the right thing. I want to go in the right way, but I make mistakes. I constantly make mistakes. And I know God is awesome. And I know, how he runs the world, and I know he's in charge of nature and, divine providence and all that. So how can I keep doing the same thing over and over again? So what's the simple answer? Get to the root of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then try and stop it. But you have to really dig. It's going to be painful to do. Might be painful to do. Look at the root of why you're doing it. And if you get to the root of the problem, then understand, try and figure out a way how to fix it. Right? But we don't want to be, we don't want to be despised in our own eyes, because then a person will never do anything. A person will feel I'm no good, and I'm never good, and we'll make that stronger because let's say other people have hammered us, and they'll say, "See, you're not really that good, and you're this and you're that," and they'll make you feel bad, make you feel 10 times worse. So the evil inclination is using them to get to you. And I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens. And you're going to say, then it gets reinforced in your heads. And then you say, wait a minute, maybe what they're saying is true because God's trying to send me a message. But who says that's God's message over here? God's not trying to say you're a bad person and you're horrific and this and that. The evil inclination is taking one thing, or maybe a number of things, but they're twisting it in a way to make you feel bad when you don't need to feel bad. They get, someone will say, you can't even go out with us. You can't even, what all the anti-Semites, they can't eat the same food as we do. You don't go to the same things. Look at the way you dress, and you're keeping these antiquated laws, and all that. And then you feel bad when you don't keep what you need to keep. That's not God necessarily giving you a message. It could be. It could be God saying, yeah, you need to be better. Okay. But I think more it's talking, it's a person's own fears with the evil inclination driving it up, putting its foot on the gas pedal and say, okay, let's see. And you get hit from here, you get hit from there, you get hit from somewhere else. And you're still thinking the same thing. I feel bad. God, look what I did over here. I have to try and be better. All these things. Okay. And then people say, see, they're never going to respect you. Communities never expect you. You're a second-class citizen. Judaism is this. They're reinforcing a person's own fears. So you can say, is God doing that? It's a test over here. God's using these other people. So the evil inclination is ramming it down your throat. That's what's going on. Right? So you're going to say, well, it does a great job. Evil inclination doesn't need me to agree with it. He does a great job, what he's supposed to do. We have to fight against it. Right? But sometimes a person won't be able to see straight, and they'll say, God's giving me this message. God's saying I'm bad. Now, God's not saying you're bad over here. A person does something against what God wants, you feel bad. Okay. Right? That's it's a legitimate way to feel. You broke you're breaking the covenant. You're rebelling essentially against him, even if it's based on desire. Right? You're going against what he says, you feel bad. And then it gets reinforced by other people in different ways. So a person's going to think, oh, look, see, God's sending me that message. God's telling me I'm no good. God's telling me, it's going to be very hard to overcome this and all that. That's not necessarily God giving you that message. Then where's that message coming from? That message very easily could be coming from the evil inclination trying to break you. right? It's a very fine line here. You're gonna say, how do you know? Because if a person's trying to go in the right direction, the evil inclination is going to try and stop you. The evil inclination does not want you to work hard. The evil inclination wants you to take it easy, doesn't want you to feel bad per se. But if a person, feels bad because they went against what God said, then what's the evil inclination going to do? It's going to pounce. It's going to say, see, you made the same mistake. Other people don't keep it as well. And then he reinforces it using negativity from other people. And a person's thinking they're getting a direct, God's hitting them directly over. It's not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. They could be getting hit over the head through other people in order to break them, in order to break their resolve, right? Because people say, I did this, I did that, right? I did the other thing, and you really feel bad. You're very vulnerable, right? You feel really bad about what's been done. But what happens now gets reinforced. And then a person going to say, see, God's sending me a message. Yeah, the message comes through the evil inclination. The evil inclination wants to sit there and break you. So now, $1.5 million question is, how do you know? How do you know where the message is coming from? Right? Because no one has prophecy today, right? The only prophets today are imbeciles or little children. So no one has direct prophecy, no question. There are very few individuals, on a very high spiritual level of divine inspiration. Former prophecy, very, low-level prophecy here, but, you're talking about great people, right? So God's not speaking to us. I don't care what a person thinks. God, prophecy is something very specific, right? God, when he speaks to someone, he knows it's being spoken to. Even if it's in a trance, he knows it's revelation. He knows it's prophecy, or she knows it's prophecy, right? Otherwise, when I think in my heart, it's irrelevant, right? God's speaking to me in that way. Okay, it's not true, right? We don't hold that. We definitely don't hold that today, right? But what can happen over here? A person can feel worse, about what they've done, not because just they did it and they feel bad, but now it's being reinforced by other things or by other people trying to get a person to break them. That's the evil inclination. It's not what God wants. It's not God setting you up for a test over here, per se, right? Even though this is what the evil inclination's doing. It could very well be, it could very well be a test over here, but it seems, I think it seems pretty clear, right? The evil inclination is coming and trying to destroy the person. And the evil inclination is taking other people with him in order to get to that person. That's what he's doing. Now, doesn't God orchestrate everything? Okay. That may be true. Does God want you to get broken? No. But a person's resolve gets weakened. When a person's resolve gets weakened, what happens? They don't want to keep Torah mitzvahs. They don't want to work hard, right? They just want to feel bad about themselves. And what happens when you feel bad about yourself? You don't want to do anything. You want to crawl into bed, right? You want to put the covers over your head. You don't want to do anything. You feel like a failure. Does God want you to feel like a failure? No. He wants you to work hard, right? So over here, what's going to happen? You have a tremendous struggle. And we all have that. We all have that. How have I people who feel so bad about what they do? Some people just say, okay, I did it. I'll repent for it. I'll move on. I'll do what I need to do. They don't really feel bad deep inside. Why don't they feel bad deep inside? Because they're broken inside. They're rotten. Let's say better. They're rotten inside. They don't have this connection they should have. We should feel bad every little bad thing we do. We should feel bad. Not enough to break us. But, person keeps doing the same thing over and over again. You got to break the bad habit. If you don't bring the bad habit, just keep coming. And it'll get stronger. And eventually, a person just give up. Right? That's what the evil inclination wants. Right? God's sitting there saying, get strength, learn Musar, work harder. Don't get caught up in what the evil inclination says. But the evil inclination, once it's got you and it has you in a strong way, it doesn't let up. It just keeps pounding and pounding and pounding. Makes it, I'm not going to say impossible. Makes it very hard to fight. Very, very hard to fight. Right? So So here, I'll take questions now. Here a person can be despised in their own eyes because they feel they should be doing better. They should be working harder, and they don't. I remember, I use myself as an example. I remember years ago, my parents' synagogue, if I made mistakes and, leading prayers or reading Torah or something, I felt really bad. Right now, why did I feel bad? Because if you strive for perfection, don't reach perfection, you feel bad. Any little thing, you feel bad. But I think there was something deeper going on. Right now, I'm looking back, many years later, right? Something deeper. Yeah, the soul screaming out, what are you doing over here? What are you doing? How can you make such a mistake? That's not, simple explanation by any stretch. And how I lived my life after that until I came to Torah mitzvahs. Right? But that could have been my soul screaming out and saying, what are you doing? It's like there's stories of people go to the Western Wall, secular Jews, and they burst out in tears. Why do they burst out in tears? They don't have a connection to Judaism at all. Right? Let's say. There's zero connection to Judaism. Why do they burst out in tears? You know why they burst out in tears? Because their soul is screaming out. Their soul is screaming out, I want Torah mitzvahs. I want something spiritual. Does the person know that? The person doesn't know that, doesn't feel that. Okay, they went to the Western Wall. It's like any other, Jewish place to visit. That's where they went, blah, blah, blah. Very good. Move on to the next place or wherever they're going. But why is their soul, why are they crying? They can't explain it in rational terms. Rational terms doesn't make sense. Okay, so you see this old artifact, see this Western Wall, okay. Buy one Israeli. You see the Western Wall, what caused them to scream out? Why buy some it does? Because their soul needs it, their soul feels it. So they don't put two and two together. Yeah, so even though a person may be despised in their own, despise themselves, that doesn't necessarily should have an effect on someone else. Right? I say, I only do something to someone else that I would do to myself. But if you feel bad about yourself, why are you going to feel good about someone else? Right? That's how we sort of got into all this. So, if I spoke, I mentioned, despising yourself. Okay, we have a long way to grow. We have a long way to, to go and to grow and all that. That's true. 100% that's true. But if a person really feels so bad about themselves, what's going to happen? They won't do anything. They'll do very little. Not only that, are they going to show honor for someone else if they feel bad about themselves? I don't think so. Yeah, someone asks, a lot of questions here. Yeah, somebody asks, how does Hashem judge your mistakes during tshuva? Depends what you did. I love giving these easy answers. Depends what you did. Depends where you're holding when you did it. Also, it can depend on the source of your soul, what God expects from a person. That'll depend against, where they're holding as well. And then God will make a decision. Right? I can't answer that. If a person made mistakes, it depends. Depends how serious a mistake is. By you making a mistake and someone else could be totally different. Someone else not holding anywhere in the world. Most important question they may ask is ketchup or mustard or relish on my hot dog. That's where most people are holding. So if they do something wrong, how does God look at it? Totally different. Why? Because I'm holding anywhere in the world. Ketchup or mustard on my hot dog. That's where they're holding. So God's going to look at it differently. If a person's really striving, they're really growing in Torah mitzvahs. Yeah, so he's going to judge them differently. Why? Because now you have a whole different way of looking at the world. Right? If you're closer to the king, as Korban Aaron says in Leviticus chapter 11, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh brings him down the laws of kashrus. Over there, he says, if you're close to, by the sin of Nadav and Avihu, by the sin of Nadav in chapter 10, book of Leviticus chapter 10, by Nadav and Avihu, the closer you are to the king, the worse it is. Because, if you sin, right, depending on what the sin is, a minor sin could be a catastrophe. Could be severe payback. Why? Because you're close to the king. So it depends. Right? Depends over here. Right? The question is how judge your mistakes during tshuva. How does he judge it? Depends what you did. Depends where you're holding. Right? If a person's holding at a higher level, that's the repentance may be much greater that they have to do. Right? In order to atone for that. Right? Now, the question is, so a person will ask, well, what if he did it out of ignorance? Okay. Ignorance isn't always bliss. A person did something they forgot. They didn't learn the laws of Shabbos properly. They didn't continue a review. They made a mistake on Shabbos. Chofetz Chaim says in the introduction to the Mishna in the 3rd volume, it's all about the laws of Shabbos. He says if you don't review, you'll make mistakes. Yeah, so you have to constantly review. Question is, what level of ignorance? I could be here till tomorrow. It's a complex question. Depends, it depends what we call ignorance over here. Could a person have known? Should they have known? Right? I'm always surprised sometimes, that, I get certain questions. I would be in the process for years and years. Now, that's a question that they should know. That they really should know. Not saying they forgot. Right? They forgot, it's one thing. There's a lot to know. Okay. There's a lot of Torah to know. That's true. Right. But even, but if you say, I never knew this, how could you be in the process of 10 years and not know something basic? I'm talking about something basic that I would think people should know. So again, it's going to depend on what the ignorance level is. I can't answer that. Depends on the person. Depends what they've been doing. Depends where they're old age. It depends on a lot of factors. Depends on a lot of factors. Right? So I'll just say that if it's something you could have known, or you should have, let's say better, if it's something really you should have known, it's more severe. Why didn't you know it? If it's something you could not have known, then that's a different issue. Someone came to my Rebbe once, asked him this question, but they knew someone, a woman who converted, and she's having difficulty covering her hair. She didn't know she had to cover her hair. So he said, does that nullify the conversion? He said, no, not everyone's supposed to, not everyone, is going to get all the information that they need to convert. They're not rebelling. They're just saying it's hard for them, right, to cover their hair, but they never heard about covering their hair before, because they're married. So I told my Rebbe, tongue in cheek, I said, if they would have been in my classes, they would have known. He's like, okay, yeah, whatever. So then I started telling him, if they're responsible, how could someone not know that? He goes, all right, I got your point. But not everyone's going to know everything. So it depends. It depends where they didn't get the information from. And if it's something they could have had the information from and they should have known. So again, I can't answer that. Depends on what was done. Depends how they could have got the information. Did they get the information? What level of ignorance, right, are we talking about? What is right self-esteem? Person, this is also a big topic here. Self-esteem means a person has to be honest with themselves without destroying themselves, right? Meaning you have to take a good look at who we are, what we do, right? And we have to realize we're a work in progress. We have to be better. We have to change, etc. Problem is we're extremely self-critical. I'm not going to say, I'm holding better than 95% world Jewry, so God's going to cut me some slack. I'm not going to say that. Then we're not going to say that. A person, though, they have to feel good about themselves. At least they're going the right path. And they're trying to do the right thing. Even if you tell me you make mistakes like this, and I make mistakes like that, okay? Right? We have to fix them. We have to work hard over here. But, God does not want someone to be depressed. And it's very easy to be depressed. It comes to Torah mitzvahs. You read most of the books, you won't get out of bed. Right? You feel like a piece of dirt. I didn't do this, I didn't have the right thoughts, I didn't this. All kinds of things. All kinds of things. It's all true. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. We have to feel good about ourselves in the sense that we want to go on the right path. We want to do the right thing. We want God's acceptance, so to speak. We want him to accept our repentance, and all that. We want to bask in God's glory and do the right thing. Is it always easy? No. Is there a lot to learn? A lot of mistakes we make? Yeah. At the same time, you can't, it's double-edged sword. But Rebbe said you can't live in the past. You don't blow it off. You don't say, well, I just did that. I can't live in the past, so I move forward. You got to think about what you did. You got to analyze. You got to figure out how you're not going to do it anymore. Right? This is the process of repentance. You got to make a real plan how you're going to do it. And then you have to set out to do it, even if you fail again. Right? But yeah, self-esteem means, I have to feel good about what I do. can't be always depressed and thinking, we can always think I can do better. That's true. We always want to strive to be better. We don't want to strive to be mediocre and just say, well, God's going to whitewash it and whatever. No, I got to take responsibility, but I don't want to break myself at the same time. So I can feel good in the sense I'm trying to go in the right path. I'm trying to do the right thing. That self-esteem is good, right? I want to do the right thing. I'm all fired up and this and that. I want to do the right thing. It's easy to get deflated, yeah, but you want to feel good about what you do. We can find a million things we do wrong. That's easy. Really feel bad because I should be doing this and doing that, and I'm not. You're right. A lot of things. So if you do that, you'll never feel good about what you do. You'll never have self-esteem. Right? So this great rabbi was talking about, I didn't finish the story. He said, a lot of people, they don't have self-esteem, so you have to keep building your kids and building them, build ourselves as well. Say, oh, at least I don't do that. At least I don't do this. Whatever. Build them up. I said, yeah, if you do that, they're going to be big Bali Gaiva. They're going to think that God's gift to the world. They're going to be conceited. Don't worry, I can help with that also. He said, that's not the problem. He told me years of experience. He said, that's not the problem. The problem is people have little self-esteem. They have little self-esteem. So we have to build them up. We have to build people up. Yeah. I see questions that people ask all the time. A lot of very good questions, but people feel crummy about themselves. Right? So, one of the most important things, certainly about a teacher, is build up who they teach. There's certain things, you should feel bad about. You should want to work hard, but you also feel good. These are good questions. These are very, very good questions. They're basic questions we should ask. Right? You don't want to go too far one way or too far the other way. Too much self-assurance, yeah, you think you're conceited. You think you're better than the world. You think you're better than everyone. But guess what? You can never be that conceited. Right? The Mishna Pirke Avos says, we'll get there one day, we're about 98. Right? And that is, you have to know where you come from. Where do you come from? Biology 101. You come from a putrid drop. That's where we come from. That's where everybody comes from. All mankind, where all come from. If you think you're God's gift to the world, think about it. Animals were created before you. If you act like animals, you know better than animals. Oh, but if you act better than animals, and we have a ruch mamala, the ability to speak and to reason and to make good decisions, or God forbid, bad decisions, yeah, we have that ability to be greater than animals. But if not, we just go according to our animalistic side. We're no better. We're for sure no better. Right? You have to know your place. Mishna Pirke Avos says also, you have to know your place. And where you're holding. So, I remember we say, oh, you accomplished this, that's great. Go further. Keep going. Don't stop. Compared to, other people in previous generations, nothing compared to them. So I'm going to feel so bad? No, compared to this generation. Okay. You can feel good about what you do, but you have to realize, you have to look in the mirror and say, well, I'm just a piece of dirt. I did this, I did that. I did the other thing. Okay. That's also true. But if a person only thinks of the negatives, you'll stay negative. That's what the evil inclination wants. What about the good things you do? Charity, you learn Torah, you do mitzvahs, you help others. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. Does that mean we're perfect? No. But the evil inclination wants to slaughter us. So, there has to be a balance over here where you have self-assurance. You want to go in the right direction, even though we do things wrong and all that. That's very true. Right. But at the same time, you don't want to say, I'm God's gift to the earth. I'm holding better than world Jewry. You don't want to say that. Even if it's true. Even if I would agree it's true. Who are you comparing yourself to? We're living in Sodom today. Right? Worse than Sodom. Yeah. You got countries trying to convince little kids they're not the same sex they were born. You're living in Sodom. That's what Sodom is. So think about it. You're going to say, wow, keep Torah mitzvahs. Yeah, you're keeping Torah mitzvahs in the Sodom world. Who are you comparing to? You want to compare, if you lived, with the great rabbis of the last generation, who are you comparing to? Like Noah, in his generation, he was considered great. Another generation might not be considered great, or maybe would have been greater. But who are we comparing to? You can have a certain level of self-esteem. That's true, but you have to realize in context. I heard a great rabbi once say, if you understand what the Gemara says or what Rashi says or anything, go have a nice piece of cake. Go have a nice piece of fruit. That's this generation. Because we're on such a low level. Doesn't mean we have to strive to be on a low level. But to realize we're holding. Even a person thinking, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You're right. These are big things and we're trying and we're growing and this and that. But who are we comparing ourselves to? I see, different stories about my Rebbe, and that's, got a little more free time now. So I'm going to start writing down all these, personal stories, that I have. But like compared to him, I'm an ant, not even an ant, not even a crust in his toenail, for goodness sakes. For what he knows, who he spoke to, and all the great rabbis he met. I mean, nothing, not even an ant. So like, tell me what you do, is great and this and that, but like, there are a lot of levels to grow, lots. So what are we comparing to? So think about that way. That way a person will never get guided. You'll never be considered because you'll say, well, I was at the top of a generation of below average people. The majority of people had, a 25 IQ. Who are you comparing to? So people are mentally challenged. So you're like Einstein compared to them. You're going to sit there and brag to people? Oh, I did this. Like, who you get, everything within reason. It's got to be within reason. Right? Sometimes I think if anyone would say anything good, you have a chance to feel any pride. Okay. You can feel good about yourself without it being pride. You definitely can feel good about yourself. I don't think there's any question. But, you got to be careful. You got to be careful because it could lead to pride, right? It definitely could. So, having self-assurance is a good thing. Keeping an eye on it to make sure you don't get the pride is also a good thing. But again, think about it. Someone, you can always think, oh, I could have done it better. I could have done, you're right. You don't want to put necessarily yourself down. You want to take a pat in the back. There was, I just read earlier, the Rav Elyashiv of blessed memory, his grandfather was a Leshen, unbelievable Kabbalist. And he was already going through, editing this book years ago. I mean, when he was much younger, much younger. In any case, this book, The Lesson, was all about Kabbalah. So I just read a story earlier today that someone said, that he said about himself. Sorry, that someone had complimented, someone very much steeped in Kabbalah gave him a compliment about the book he wrote. So he felt like 100 feet high, and whatever. Listen, this person was a rabbinic scholar in their own, in their own rights, in a huge way, big rabbinic scholar. So he said, if someone would have told me that years ago, I would have wrote 2 books. If I would have known I would get such a compliment, I would have written another book. Now, is that saying that he's gaivadik? Right? That they're showing too much pride? No. What did it do? Gave him a tremendous step in the right direction. Gave him this tremendous oomph. Right? I can't even tell you how many times. I wasn't necessarily broken. It's just whatever. I tell my Rebbe different things and this and that. Just give me like a tremendous shot in the arm. Tremendous shot in the arm in chizuk. In spiritual strength. Last me at least hopefully a couple of days. Get a compliment from the Torah giants of generation. It's huge. He also put me in my place a number of times, no question about that. Right, as well. But he wasn't worried that was going to give me gaiva. It was going to make me, too proud. Yeah. But he wanted to give me strength. Pick me up. Lift me up. That was huge. And other rabbis do that also because they understood the person needs to hear something good. Right? Certainly, spouses need to say good things to each other. Can't just take them for granted. Right, etc. But to hear something good about themselves, people like that. It's not about being, worrying about it's going to lead to pride. And if it does, that's a problem. Right? When a person gets a compliment, I'll say in my case, I get a compliment from from the Torah giant, like who once told me, someone said something, whatever, I was telling him something, and He said, listen, you got me, don't worry about it. I'll be your father, I'll be like your grandfather. I said, anything you need, I'll take care of you. It was huge. You know. He said, anything you need, you call me. I said, I'm here. Yeah, you think you have better things to do? He had kids, grandkids to take care of. You know, sit there and listen to me and, you know, my puny little things, whatever. Gave me huge strength. Huge. Yeah. They lead me to say, oh, look, see, look, one of the Torah giants generation. Look what he said to me. Sit there and brag about it? I didn't brag about it. Not at all. I knew my place, but I knew what he was trying to do also. Made me feel good. Made me feel like somebody really cared. Okay. Wasn't someone in my family, but like, you know, I'd say like a father, no question. Grandfather, I mean, is much older, but still, you know, no question. You know, somebody like that says, you know, you can call me 3 a.m. You know, you can call me. So I'll answer the phone. His son told me once. I called him, he was already halfway down the steps. He heard I was on the phone, he came and answered the phone. Made me feel good. I mean, kind of the question maybe was kind of stupid. I asked him, whatever it was, right? But that's not about gaiva. That's not going to lead to pride, you know, per se. So I can tell a lot of stories, you know, a lot of stories, things he said, and, you know, different things, you know, but why do I mention it now? You know, makes me, you know, feel good who I rub shoulders with, but no, right? I mean, it's, you know, he cared like a father, like a grandfather. And he says, whatever I can do to help, and, you know, help me a lot, you know, no question. So many different ways in my life. I don't, no question. No question. That's why I'm determined now. This time, we'll see what happens, see what the inclination does. But you know, like a friend of mine always says, got to get these personal stories out. You got to write them down before you forget them. So hopefully, you know, that's what I'm going to do. But this is huge. That's not going to lead to guide. You know, those stories make me like teary-eyed. Makes me feel my brain feel fuzzy. Why? Well, here you got somebody who's willing to vouch for you. You know, is willing to help you, whatever, you know, whatever they can do. It's like a father figure. That's huge. Not everyone has it. You know, so, you know, could I brag about it and say other things? Yeah, I could. But it's not to make me feel good. It's give everyone else strength. But that gave me tremendous strength. Yeah, somebody asks, it's possible to have zero fear of death. Zero fear of death. I don't know. You know, if a person realizes where they're going, and they're going to a much better place, I mean, you know, they're going to get judged, you know, and all that. Death is just a transformation, right? Death doesn't mean it's just the end, right? The problem is we all have a desire to want to live. Nobody wants to die. I mean, there are people who have death wishes out there, whatever, but nobody really wants to die, right? You know, but at the very end, the person knows it's their time to go. Right. So, you know, Rebbe cried at the end of his life. They asked him, like, why, you know, righteous person, generation, like, you know, why would you be crying? He said, if I knew I was going just a mortal king, it's one thing. You know, I have a way to answer things, whatever, but I'm going to go to the King of Kings. I'm going to go to the King of Kings, have to answer. He was afraid. Yeah. Wasn't afraid of death per se. Right? Because that's part of the Mishna also. Know where you came from. Know where you're going, i.e. the grave. Worms are going to eat you. Very appetizing. And know who you have to give din v'cheshbon, who you have to give counting for in front of the King of Kings. That, you know. So should a person really be afraid of death? No. What should they be afraid of? You know, in our strongest belief in God, what should we really be afraid of? We should be afraid of what we have to answer for what we've done. That's what we should be afraid of. Death is just a transformation. The soul is infinite, right? So, you know, like someone said, well, you know, when I die going 6 feet under, I said, yeah, I hope for your sake, you're right. Because if I'm right, there's judgment, there are repercussions, you know, whatever. But that's also a cleansing process. So a person really shouldn't be afraid of death, right? Essentially. What should we really be afraid of? We have to answer for what we've done. That's a greater fear. Much, much greater fear. So is it possible to have zero fear of death? Yeah, in the sense that, you know, people say, I'm not afraid to die. But I would say, what are they afraid of? What should we be afraid of? And not necessarily death per se, but what should we be afraid of? So we have to answer. We have to answer the next one. Someone asked, I just got this question earlier. Is it true that you can astral travel to the hollow void, converse with being? I have no idea. Someone asked me if it's permissible to do. So as far as I understand, my answer would probably be no. Right? It's true the soul does this, but we don't have any connection when we sleep. Where the soul goes and what happens. We don't remember that when we wake up. Whatever our dreams are, pretty much, unless a person is supposed to get this information, this will never happen. We'll never understand what we're going through and where we went and whatever. So can it be? First, people can go through this. People can go through this type of thing. Should it be done? It doesn't seem like it should. I mean, I have to research it some more, but that's what I would say. Right? At first glance, not something we should try and do, and we should try and tap into. Is it true? I don't know. People talk about it like it's true. That people can do it, that people can have this experience. Is it true according to Torah mitzvahs? It is, in the sense, what happens to your soul when you sleep, that your soul goes up and does that and goes who knows where. But the problem is the soul only knows that when it comes back to the body, when we wake up in the morning, or if you don't wake up, then you die. But if you wake up in the morning, you don't remember any of it. Your soul will remember it. You'll never remember it in this world. Right? So that is true. That is definitely true. That's what the Zohar says. And other sources, it's what it says according to Kabbalah. That is very true. Can we do it and do it to ourselves? That's a different issue. Right? Some people say, there are ways to do it in different things. Right? So, part of me would say, it should be forbidden. Should be forbidden to do. But according to Kabbalah, that's true. Definitely according to Kabbalah, it's true. That that the soul can travel, and who it comes in contact with and what it does, I can't say. I can't say. But that seems to be true, at least according to Kabbalah. Is that a part of the process where the prophet goes through? That's a different issue. A prophet is getting a direct communication when they're in a transcendental state. Usually they're asleep or in some sort of trance. Right. So, but they do understand it's prophecy. Either God could be speaking to them directly, or through a vision. Right. Usually through a vision, or through something else. God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu face to face, even when he was standing up and he didn't lose any of his faculties. So it's kind of hard to understand what that communication was. But for any other prophet, it's usually done through some sort of either an intermediary. And a person's shown some sort of vision, right? And they have to get the prophecy right. If they don't get the prophecy right, obviously, it's pretty severe. They get the death penalty. But a prophet's not going through this different portal and seeing different things. He's having direct communication, either with, again, intermediary or seeing a vision. I don't think he's going through that. I don't think he's seeing that portion. There's a medrash, interesting medrash. Someone showed me, Yalkut Shimoni on Yonah, on the book of Jonah. On when Jonah's in the whale, and he's able to see like all these different things happen in history, right? While he's alive in the whale, right? So kind of wild thing, right? He's not in a trance or anything. He's buried in this whale, and the whale is taking him all over, showing him everything that happened from the beginning of creation, right? So it's also different, a different thing. Can it happen? Again, prophecy is different. The way prophecy works is different, right? From what I understand. If you read Derech Hashem, from the Ramchal, the way of God is a very, very different thing. What prophets experience, than what this astral thing is or whatever. Someone else asked commentaries on the keynotes and martyrs. Talking about Elizabeth ben Trajan died as wrapped in Sefer Torah, set on fire. Executioner asked, this is the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Asks if he ends the suffering, will he end up in Olam Haba? In other words, if he takes off there was a what's it called? A certain type of not cotton, wool. He took the wool off his heart, he would die straight away. Here he suffered tremendously. right? So he did it, and they both went to Hama. Yeah, this is very hard to understand because the question is, someone was not a worshiper and it was so cruel. How do you go to Hama? Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll ask you with another question, right? It was Rebbe Elizabeth ben Tradia. It's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah, I think, page 18. Speaks about what happened. So I'll tell you with another question. And I asked a friend of this the other day before the fast, and that was, you look at the Gemaras in Gittin that speak about the destruction of the temple. Yeah, and talk about Nebuzaradan. Nebuzaradan was the hatchet man, was the butcher. So the butcher of Babylon, come right under command of what's his name, of Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, he killed tens of thousands of people, and he killed young Kohanim. He killed like so many people. So he ended up, because a certain thing that he did, he ended up seeing, what was happening and who he was and whatever. He ended up converting to Judaism, right? And so the Gemara there talks about like who came out of him, who the great rabbis came out of the Nebuzaradan, right? I think it speaks about over there. So double check. But in any case, my question always is, before Tisha B'Av or on Tisha B'Av, why allow him to convert? This person killed tens of thousands of people himself in a horrific way, butchered them, slaughtered them. Yeah. So what's the answer? What's the simple answer? You see that repentance is open for anyone who seriously wants to repent, unless God stops them from repenting. Mind-boggling idea. If Hitler, Yamach Shemoy V'Zichron, his name be blotted out, may rot wherever he is, decided after killing so many millions of Jews and wanted to convert. So again, I'm not playing God here. If God would have allowed him to convert, imagine what basin's going to accept him, right? Forget about that. What rabbinical court would have accepted? Not even the point. Let's say God allowed him to convert. You would all be asking me the same question. What? He killed 2 million people, 3 million people, right? Through his own words. And he got the whole world rallied around, killed millions and millions of Jews. Could God have allowed him to convert? If he wanted to, seriously? Could have. And you would have said, where's the justice? Where's the justice? You let a madman convert? You let this Kustanari, that's what it was called in the Gemara, this executioner, you let him get Olam Haba? God allowed it. Right? God allowed it. Why? He had serious thought to repentance. And God saw through the depth of his soul. He said, I'll accept him. And he did it. Ask another question. The Egyptians get spit on the land. They're allowed to be buried. Right? I have a whole video on this on one of the parshas of the book of Exodus. Why are they allowed to be buried? Let the fish eat them like bin Laden. Because they said God's fighting against us. Their God is fighting against us because they recognize God. They're allowed to be buried. What would he have said? Let the fish eat them. 80% of the Jewish people didn't come out of Egypt. Yeah. And everything that Egypt did, to make the Jewish lives bitter, you allow them to be buried? Okay, God took care of business. He killed them. He destroyed them. He didn't allow the angels to sing praise to him because of it. Because he said, look, my creation is drowning. Your creation is drowning? You got 200,000 bin Ladens, right? 200,000 Al-Qaeda people drowning. Let them drown. They don't deserve to drown. No, but they said, they praised me. They said they acknowledge me. They say I'm the one causing all this. But that thing ought to be buried. That makes sense? Very hard to understand. Right? What would I say? Nothing stands in the way of repentance. Or acknowledging God's existence. Now, God, again, everyone who acknowledges God's existence is going to get a free pass? No. Doesn't mean that. Right? You take someone like that, an executioner. You take the Egyptians, all the bin Ladens, all the Al-Qaeda nicks over there. You allow him to be buried? You allow Nebuzaradan, the butcher of Babylonia. You allow him to convert to Judaism? You see the great people came out of him? What in the world's going on? What's the simple explanation? That's what I said to a friend of mine. He liked the answer. I mean, it seems like it's the only answer, and that is nothing stands in the way of repentance. True repentance. You see that? You see that by Eliezer ben Dordaya. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, one of the most despicable people there ever was. Put it, and is about to do this tremendous transgression. He didn't do it. He goes to the mountains. Can you help me? No. Can you see? Can you help me? No. I see it's all dependent on me. Put his head between his knees, and he cried out, and he died. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya, welcome in Olam Haba. Rabbi? 2 minutes before, he's totally disgusting in your eyes. First of all, he becomes a rabbi. Now he's accepted in Olam Haba. How does that work? So Rabbi Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince says, some people get their Olam Haba, takes them 70 years, takes them 80 years. This person got Olam Haba in 1 second. Can we understand that? Someone who's totally disgusting in God's eyes 1 split second before, now all of a sudden true repentance? That's the power of repentance. That's my answer. That's the power of repentance. But the question is much stronger than that. If we would all be playing God over here, we'd say, of course, we wouldn't allow him to repent. We're going to make him suffer. We're going to make him go through all kinds of terrible things. Never allow. How are you going to allow him to repent? You're going to allow him to convert? Yeah. That's what I would say. Somebody asks, is it true that a big rabbi can say a good word for you in the court of heaven? Yes. They can intercede for us. That is what I do understand. They have that, kind of power, but it doesn't mean God has to listen. But they do have power to do that. Righteous people have that, definitely have that power. I think that's true. Definitely think that's true. Is the world hollow? Why is Hebron a cave way to pathway? I don't know. Right? These questions about, the next world, and what the passageway and where it comes from and, where it is. That's not my area of expertise. Can you never dodge a question? Why you're a gift? Yeah, that's good. Glad to have fans out there. These are complex questions. I don't know. I don't know when it comes to these type of things where Gan Eden is and how a person get there in this world and where the opening and different things. It's not my area of expertise. Any other questions? When we see our rabbi, should we greet him first or wait till we've spoken to him? Greet him first, not a problem. And it's definitely not a that's not a problem. Is it better to show humility? Wait till you talk to him first? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I just mentioned one thing, that if a person ever goes to someone who's in mourning, whether for a father, sister, mother, brother, sister, brother, mother, father, or a child, someone they're obligated to mourn for. So if you're in a mourner's house, normally you don't speak until the mourner speaks. Right? That's the only case I would say you don't speak in front of someone else. Right? Whether it's your rabbi or not your rabbi, whatever. Right? Someone who's in mourning, you let them speak first. Even if people sitting there for a long time, you don't speak until they speak. But otherwise, the person want to speak, they want to speak first. Yeah, that's not a problem. Definitely not a problem. Someone asks, what's the best way to respond if JIT is called up to the Torah? Just say you're not Jewish. Just say you're JIT. If you go to synagogue, whatever, you should tell them you're not Jewish. So they don't mistakenly count you as part of the minyan. Right? So, a Jew in training, they ask you to be called up. You say, I'm not Jewish yet. That's pretty the easiest thing. That's pretty the easiest thing to say, is that, you'd love to get the honor, but you're not Jewish yet. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. Tomorrow I'm going to continue the book of Leviticus chapter 17. That'll be 9 o'clock Eastern time. Anyone that has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, Q&As, Pirke Avos, Book of Leviticus, controversial issues as well. Mentioned as well that anyone interested in any spiritual coaching, dealing with all kinds of difficult topics, whether dealing with family, friends, or whatever, dealing with these type of things, either one-on-one or a group, they should definitely let me know. See what's going to happen in a few weeks if I'm actually going to do it. Otherwise, anyone has any questions, send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wish them a good middle of the day.